Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Hitakiri Singh, and here is the much requested how to truly build defensive video. And I know a lot of you guys have been looking forward to this, and I'm going to kind of attach it with my Arch-Tempered Velkhana guide. This video is not going to show a battle with Arch-Tempered Velkhana, but normally I show a battle with whatever build I do, and I'm going to link that up with the guide because I think Arch-Tempered Velkhana is a really good monster to show how sometimes you want to emphasize a defensive build, and you really want to use skills that are going to truly be useful and not things that you think might be useful but really don't help you too much in the fight. Well, today we are here with Madame Provisions Manager. Let's just say hi to her.
You look well.
Yeah, you look well too. Thank you, thank you. Anyways, I like being silly like that. Sorry, guys. And by the way, oui, je parle un petit peu français, un petit peu. For anyone that was asking, maybe as an Easter egg, I'll throw in. I know, like the French national anthem in French verbatim. I don't really quite remember actually learning it, but I know I did sometime in high school. So maybe as an Easter egg at the end of one of my videos, I'm just going to throw in me singing that, just to give you something to look out for. Anyways, let's get on to that. But also, I want to let you know in the future we got some more Monster Hunter content coming up. I'm going to do a how to play the longsword guide and basically show, all the moves, what they do, but really how to use them kind of together and what sequences you want to use them in to create a really efficient battle flow and something that I call my never-ending combo, which is really useful and really great to get huge damage and lots of stuns. And I'm also going to do a video on how to do Celiana. All these things in this town. You got, your little gardener guy over here, you got the elder melder, you got the smithy, and all these things have plenty of options. Even up here, I want to show you some tricks that you can do with some of these rewards. I mentioned in another video you can do a lot with the Steam tickets to get Mega Demon Drugs and Mega Armor skins, but there's a lot of other things you can do, including farm sealed face stones from these guys, so that's going to be another video, how to do Celiana. Well, anyways, let me wrap up this. Oh, and by the way, I just wanted to thank everybody for their previous comments, your likes, and everything. You're giving my channel the buzz that I was kind of hoping for. So if you enjoy these type of videos, please like, subscribe, so forth, and I'll be happy to do more. I'll be happy to take your requests. Just let me know what you guys want to see. Somebody requested an Alatreon guide that will come in the next week or two, and I might just go ahead and do like a Shar-Ishvalda guide too, because that's pretty early in Monster Hunter, and a lot of you guys might want to know some efficient ways to beat him and farm his parts. Okay, anyways, so let's get to the bulk of this video, how to truly build defensive. So you've been wondering, how do I build my build so I can handle the pressure of some of these tougher monsters? And, let's find out what the true defensive skills that will really be useful for you. So, you can make yourself into an offensive juggernaut in these battles with defensive skills. I just also wanted to say welcome back to all my brothers, sisters, but especially the sisters/sisters. Just my call to be civil and respectful to each other, guys. I mean, we're in 2024 and we're not animals, and let's treat people with common decency and respect online, okay? It's not that hard to do. Alright, let's go into, before we go into the builds actually, I just want to start off with your item layouts, because these are very, very helpful depending on how you set up your item layouts to be able to eliminate the need of some defensive skills, so you can kind of rely on your items rather than needing a bunch of stuff that you might not need. Let's just go over this case by case. Make sure everybody has their Armor Charms, Power Talon, and Armor Talon. These each give a 5% increase to attack and defense, and these two give a 10% increase to attack and defense. So in any defensive build, you want to make sure you got at least those, but there's no reason you shouldn't have these either, because as we've discussed before, and we will discuss again, offense is defense. All right. You always want to make sure you have your full health recovery items, your ancient potion and your max potion, and you also, and this is very important, guys, you want to have the ability to the items to craft more of those. You got 10 Kelby horns and 10 immunizers. Boom, you got 10 more ancient potions. You can only carry one ancient potion, so the fact that you can craft 10 more and have the total number of 11 available during a fight is absolutely gigantic and can be a game changer in many fights. And both of these work instantly, not like your mega potion that takes some time. You can do these in a pinch. And so make sure you have the max carrying capacity of both of these and their ingredients. And for the max potions, you're going to use mega nutrients and this mandragora. 5 each of those is going to give you another total 5 max potions. So you'll have 7 total max potions and 11 total ancient potions. That's 18 instant maximum health topping off items. These things are game changer, guys. You never have to carry potions and honey. Just make sure you carry these two and their ingredients, and you can still carry the mega potions, but you don't have to fill up the rest of your spots with the honey and the potions. And then I also like to carry Dust of Life because it gives you a significant amount of health back. Not quite the amount of a mega potion, but similar. But it also works instantly, and that's the important part, is how quickly you regenerate your health from that. And then I carry 4 God Bugs and 4 Gloam Grass Buds because they craft into more of these Dust of Life, so now you have 6 of those. And both of these are useful when you just need to top up your health, usually to proc peak performance. Whereas if you're really in a pinch and need to make sure you don't get death by the next hit, you use one of these, you know. This is a Fatalis setup, so I have smoke bombs in here. Your Farcaster, make sure you always have your Farcaster. You run out of your health supplies and you need to go top up back at the camp, or just to get out of a pinch. You might be against a wall and he's about to unleash a giant attack that's going to cart you. You know, if you have this preset somewhere, you can quickly use it and get out of harm's way. Restock your supplies, eat if you need to again, rebuff, resharpen, all that stuff, and then get back into the fight. You got plenty of time to accomplish these fights if you're doing enough damage and have a good strategy. And then I always carry my 2, Might Seeds and Adamant Seeds, and my Demon Powder and Hardshell Powder. These do stack with each other. Alternatively, you can use the Might Pill and the Adamant Pill. They give you a bigger attack and defense boost, but they only last 30 seconds, whereas the Might Seed and the Adamant Seed give you a less of a boost, but they last for 3 minutes, as does the Demon Powder and the Hardshell Powder. So this is a slight increase to your defense. This is a bigger increase to your defense. These work for your entire party, so everybody that you're around, including your Palico and Tail Raiders, or whatever boa accompaniment you might have, or anything like that. And this is your offensive version, slight, and this works on all, and again, they do stack with each other. And then of course you definitely want to have your Mega Demon Drugs and your Mega Armor Skin, the max versions of them, and I'll show you in a second how to get as many of those as you need. These are significant boosts to your offense and defense. They will last as long as you don't cart, and if you do cart, you just have them preset in your inventory, and you just take them again after you wake up from your faint, and they're pretty much always procced, easy way to get these. And this stuff like this is what's going to be in my how to do Celiana guide, and there's a ton of it for almost everything you can do. That there's a bunch of stuff I know you guys are just don't know that you can do, and I want to show you that you can do. But anyways, for pretty much unlimited demon drugs and mega armor skins, just go to your crafty guy, Elder Melder. And what you want to use is you want to use your Steam tickets that you get from the Steamworks factory. You'll have a crap ton of these as long as you're doing those fairly regularly. I have 1280, and that's not nowhere near the max I've had. I've had thousands of those before because I've just done a bunch of Steamworks, so these are pretty much a 1-to-1 conversion. For every single ticket you get a Mega Demon Drug. So whenever I get low, I just craft like 150 of these, something like that, 200 200 of each, and then I go, and then by the time they run out, I've done the steam work enough times for me to have plenty more to do it again, you know. Especially now I'm doing mostly guiding land stuff. I hardly ever take multiple one of those. Okay, so that's enough about your items. We will talk about food in just a second, but let's go ahead and get into the nitty gritty, and let's do the builds. I'm gonna pause it right here because I'm making this in a bunch of different clips, and I don't know the exact order what it's going to be in. So if you see a few awkward transitions, sorry, it'll make sense at the end because I want to always structure it in a way that I feel like it makes the most sense. But yeah, just bear with me. I mean, I'm not going to have a huge production value other than just me and my PlayStation and doing these things. But I feel like the information in the gameplay that I show is just as equivalent, if not better, than most of these guys with, you know, giant heads on their screen with thinky faces and pointing at things and going, this is the best and that's that. Well, yeah, whatever, bro. I'm a gamer. I don't have time for all that. But I do want to bring you guys all this information. So I'm going to pause right here and we're going to start the next clip. One more quick point about your items, guys. I mentioned that these are increases of 5% and 10%. I meant 5 flat, like 5 raw for attack, and 10 raw for attack, not percent, just 10. And same with these, 10 and 5 for that. And the other thing I forgot to mention, I had smoke bombs up there, which are kind of good defensively, especially for guys like Fatalis and stuff. But one of your most defensive, helpful items is your flash pods. I'm coming, baby. That's my dog. I'm coming, baby. These things get you out a lot of jams, or get monsters to land when they're flying, or if you just need to create an open for a soften or a flinch when they're on the ground, you can just flash them in the eyes and get that opening. So always carry those with you too, because that's going to help out in a lot of different fights. Okay, I'm just going to attach that to the end of the last segment, and here we go into the build. Okay, and here's the build. I'm going to use a Fatalis set for this. I actually had a conversation with a subscriber about doing this with a Master 24 rank build, basically a Master's Touch, Teostra Techniques type level stuff, and I did the run and I beat him. It was just a bit of a slog, and there were just a lot of things that were dependent on that fight that I don't think would make for a good guide on to teach people how to fight him. He's a Master Rank 100 monster, so usually by that level, it shouldn't be unheard of to have your Fatalis gear. Even if you haven't beaten him, you usually have all his parts and weapons and so forth. So I'm just going to stick with that because some of the aspects of that fight were more based on like skill and even just some dumb luck that I just don't think would be a good video. But I am going to use a Frostfang Greaves for the ice resistance that it gives, so I can build my ice resistance in my build without having to eat anything for it. And it's a Master Rank 24 equipment, so not like, I've seen a lot of optimal setups for this fight that already include the Rime Guard Greaves and the helm and things like that, but the guide is for you to beat them and farm them, so I don't want to use that equipment in it, Alternatively, you can use anything that has some positive ice resistance in this fight. Let's just see what's another. I mean, I really wouldn't use too much more. You could use Colvey and then eat for it, but I really wouldn't. I would just use these Frostfang Greaves because it also gives you Punishing Draw. That's the skill that you'll have with it, is Punishing Draw. Adds stun effect to some of your weapon, and he is susceptible to stun, so it's helpful to get 1 or 2 stuns during the fight to get him down. There's a lot of little tricks to getting him down, including using some stalactites and stuff like that, mounts and everything, and you want to use everything against him. So again, this video is not going to include the battle sequence. Usually I do a build and then show it in a fight, but I'm going to use that same build for the Archtemper Velkhana guide. So these videos will be linked in the comments and everything like that, so everyone can see how we do this thing. So basically, I just wanted to point that out because we're starting off with how to build defensively as a theory, and it does vary a little bit based on the monster that you're fighting. So you kind of have to have a selected monster before you can truly have this conversation of how do you build defensively for it. But I will go over some of the other skills that will not be used in the build and their uses defensively. So let's start off with the basics here. Defense boost, guys, is going to be completely useless. Completely useless. It has some merit in early or in base game and maybe even early Iceborne, but look at my base defense on the bottom right. It's 1079. Let's just go ahead and max this out. Let's just see what this looks like. I don't have any more. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to put level 1 jewels in a level 4 slot, and oh, that just gives me the heebie-jeebies because all the inefficiency. Ugh. Anyways, I just want to make a point to show this thing. My level 1s are back here. And I'm not, everything has to be the most efficient thing ever. I'm just, something this inefficient. Level 1, yuck. Anyways, so basically, defense is maxed out, and my bad. You're going to get your defense up to 1222, which is like 150, 160 more. You get a +5 to all your resistances, but when you're having a fight against, let's say, an AT Velkhana or Furious Rashang, like there's only one element you really need to build for, like hard thunder resist or hard ice resist. Like even the water in Velkhana or Namiel, you don't have to build against. You can just use a crisis tool. So you don't often need to build multiple resistances. It's not very helpful at all. And the amount of damage reduction it actually does is far outweighed by Divine Blessing. And there's tons of other videos that show this, so I didn't want to include that clip. But I will show the skills in this build and how they perform against Velkhana, of course, in the Velkhana guide. I'm going to do it similarly to the Fatalis guide. Show you guys a bunch of information about him and what attacks and defense and tricks to know about the stage, and then show a full-fledged fight about it. So we'll get into all of that. So yes, defense boost is pointless. There's no reason to run it unless you're running like an Alatreon full set where you want to bump up all your defenses to get more damage. Then yeah, that would make sense then. But any other time, no. If you're going to use something that reduces damage, you use Divine Blessing. But really, first, your priority on any defense build, and this is a maxed out Fatalis setup, I understand. But if any other build that you're using that you want to start building defensive, your number 1 and 1A and 1B skills you want to have are Evade Extender and Evade Window. These are the two best defensive skills that there are. Why? Because they allow you to avoid enemy attacks or have iframes through enemy attacks, and it's a million times better just not to get hit rather than have something that reduces damage. So if you have skills that help you tremendously into not getting hit, you control the fight. You can use them offensively and defensively to avoid attacks, or roll around a monster to get a right position where you can get a bunch of hits and they're still not even turned around. I'm going to show all of this in the actual fight, but I just wanted to explain why those things are important. But before we actually start slotting those defensive skills, the first thing everybody has to understand about defense is that offense is defense. The ability to stun, the ability to clagger, the ability to get head knockdowns and leg trips and break parts, and all of these things create huge openings to do big damage constantly throughout the fight, so you're not always being oppressed by the monster's abilities. And the AT Velkhana is a fight with abilities that will oppress you, so as many openings you can do really benefit you. And all of these things are related. The slight stuns are related into the more severe stuns. They're related into the knockdowns and so forth. They're just showing you that you're building up to these things. So that's very important to have a certain level of meta offense. We're wearing our Agitator 5 charm, and let's go ahead and max that out. Agitator is one of the best attack boosts in the game, other than eating, really, and maybe a hunting horn from Fatalis. And that 20% affinity is needed. Okay, let's go ahead and max out our crit eye. These things are definitely needing to be done to get 100% or 95% affinity for the Zagaspanin. But for your weapon, or this build, guys, is going to be centered more on the longsword, but really melee weapons. So if you're somebody that uses pokey things with shields and switch axes and other things that have some sword and shield that have some built-in defense. This is going to be a basis on some of these skills, but there's definitely going to be others that are not mentioned here. And if you subscribers have your own versions of how you build your sword and shield, or whatever weapon that has some defensive elements that you like to use, a lance, feel free to post your builds in the comments. I would love to see that. I'd love to share that and have other people see those kind of things, Okay, so we're building our meta offense. We have our crit eye max, our agitator max, weakness exploit is max just in the build, and now we're going to need criticals, our critical boost. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 critical evasions, because we were just talking about how evasions are important, and these critical evasion jewels, guys, are really, really helpful in so many different builds. So if you get them, hold on to them. Alright, so we've maxed out our critical boost. No, we haven't maxed it out just yet. What else do we want to do? Let's just go ahead and we're going to eventually get into Divine Blessing, but I will just go ahead and put a critical protection in there. Okay, so we got crit eye, crit boost, weakness exploit, and now we need attack boost 4. I have 1 attack boost in my Frostfang Greaves, and this is where we're going to attach evade extender, the other 1A and 1B skills, and we're going to do 3 jumping attacks to max that out and go ahead and get our attack boost 4. Did I miss it? No, there it is. Okay, so now your evade extender is maxed out. Guys, this doubles, if not more, the length of your rolls. And it basically creates a situation that there's no such thing as panic rolling. You can literally roll in and out of any defensive or offensive situation you want with this on. 2 or 3 of these rolls will get you out of range of 97.5% of the attacks that monsters can do in this game. There's a handful of attacks that are full screen attacks, like Eschaton Judgment, or from Altreon, or Safi's big thing that you have to hide behind a rock, or Behemoth, or even like Lunastra, Supernova. You can escape that, but its distance is huge, so if you're too close to them, it's not a really viable option. But other than that, these extension abilities are going to prove invaluable to how you can evade attacks, not take damage in the first place, and focus on turning the tables, because once you're evaded with them, you can use your rolls to get exactly where you want to with the monster. And I'm sorry I'm not showing all of this right now in like B-roll clips, but I'm going to show all of this in the guide, so you'll see everything that we're talking about. Just bear with me. Let's go over the nuts and bolts and the nitty-gritty first, and then we're going to show you everything, you know what I mean? Okay, so alright, that's basically our meta offense is now done, because we need that attack boost 4 for the 5% affinity that we've been talking about. Now let's go more into the skills. We've just talked about that. Now let's talk about evade window. Why is this so important? So evade window, what it does is extends the invulnerability period when you're evading, but really it's anything that has invulnerability iframes, it's going to extend that period. So for a longsword user, you have your rolls, of course, but you also have your foresight slash, and it definitely extends the iframe windows of the foresight slash, allowing you to land those. That window you have to absorb the hit is bigger. Basically, you can there's certain times where you would get hit out of the move, which you will not now, and you'll be able to land those more frequently. But also what it does in conjunction with your evade window is miraculous, is nothing short of godlike, because now you have rolls that are much more of a distance, that have like a much longer animation, and you've severely increased the invulnerability window of the iframes of that roll. So the majority of the time that you're doing that roll, you're actually invulnerable to damage as well, So in conjunction with these two, you've made yourself godlike defensively, because you can either roll through and completely negate damage from attacks, or around them, or away from them, and instantly use that same ability to go right back towards them. This combination, if you haven't used it before, try it. It's going to take you getting used to, because it's not just a get out of jail free card when it comes to taking damage. you're using this to avoid taking damage. But yeah, work with these two aspects before any other aspects in a defensive build if you have far less slots than Fatalis. You're going to need meta offense to hurt them. You're going to need evade window and evade extender to negate as much damage as they can do. Another really handy skill that just comes with the helmet of this set is stun resistance. Stun resistance is really, really nice. It completely prevents stun, you know? So anytime you have any electric monster that has buildup of stun, or you take a certain amount of hits and you get your dizzying animation, you know, a lot of monsters it doesn't matter, but on a monster like AT Velkhana that has this breath attack that will one-shot you, if you're not careful, stun is a death sentence. So you want to definitely, you know, monsters like Fatalis, you don't want to have stun, because you have these monsters, Alatreon, other monsters too, like just your Elder Dragons, your Furious Rejanks, all these high-level guys can do some big damage, so you don't want to be facing any kinds of stun. So it's a very important skill. It is something you can work around. It's not the most important skill to have, but when you can slot it, and with the Fatalis armor, it's quite easy to do. It becomes invaluable in many fights as well. Okay, so let's see. We've gone over evade extender, evade window, stun resistance, and these things that we're talking about, it's kind of in order of importance, you know? Now let's go ahead and start building into Divine Blessing, but I also want to point out that this fight, Divine Blessing, is extremely important, but there are a lot of other difficult monster fights where it is not as important, because you're negating the need for it with your jump extender and your evade window. And then you can slot things like, you know, for example, against a Kushala, you want to have level 3 wind resist, so you can resist some of his basic wind attacks. I mean, most of his heavy wind attacks you're still gonna eat, but it's helpful when you can have some extra openings by negating some of those attacks. By the way, with Kushala, you would never use your glider mantle, guys. You get pushback, wind resistant pushback just by wearing it, even if you're not gliding around. So just the fact that you're wearing it, and any wind effect is going to be more severe on you, and constantly you would use you know, your rock steady in that situation. So wind resist is a very helpful skill in several fights, and it's not just Kushala. Any monsters that have roars, wind-based things that can knock you out or stop you from attacking, and you can negate that, and you can go through those and attack the monster, are really handy. Another one is, I just don't know where they are, guys, but Flinch free. Flinch free can make some fights like Nergigante, Narcocuga. Narcocuga, it's almost, you know, you have to have it so you can constantly attack, make quick work of the monster rather than eating all his trips, you know. And earplugs. Earplugs is also a very handy skill to have, based monster dependent, if you want to negate roars. I know a lot of you hammer, greatsword mains, you guys know about this stuff, because, you know, you have limited chances to get in there and do big damage, and the times that they're roaring, you don't want them to roar them out of you. So that's a very helpful skill as well. And I basically think flinch free, earplugs, and wind resist are the only other really 3 skills you need to worry about, other than the ones we're going to go over in this video. I'm not going to showcase that in this build, because of course we're going against AT Velkhana, and the wind resist could be helpful, but there's other skills I want to put in for survivability and maneuverability. So they're just going to outclass the need for wind resist, you know. But keep in mind those 3 skills in any monster fight, how it might fit into the build, and creates ways for you to constantly attack, because like we're talking about, attacking is defense. The more damage, the more stuns, the more you hurt them, the better off you are in any fight. And I'm not saying by playing flawlessly either. You just got to be a bit more mindful and make sure, it's like you kind of have to watch the monster, see what they're doing, and then make your decision, because a lot of times your decision is going to be to go in it for attack, but it'll help you determine how to approach things, and we'll go more into that as well. Okay, so let's see. We want some other important defensive skills in here too, if needed, but before we get into that, got to have your shaver for the tenderizing, and you've got to have 2 levels of handicraft on here, so I want to make sure one of them gets put on right there. Okay, so let's talk about damage negating skills. We talked about defense boost being useless. Even things like elemental resistances being up, they do negate more damages of certain attacks, but not the physical attacks. But they don't really do as good of a job as what this beast of a skill does. It basically, let's go ahead and do a handicraft protection just to get the second one of those. I always like to have 2 handicraft. And, you know, when we max it out at level 5, when active, it reduces the damage taken by 60%. And, of course, it randomly becomes active, but, you know, it becomes active like, you know, 40% of the time, 50% of the time. But it becomes easier to activate. So at its max level, I'd say about 75% of the time it's active when you're taking hits, and it can reduce your damage significantly. So if you are going to have a damage reduction skill, this is the only one you want. This is the only one you need. It negates the need for defense boosts. It negates the need for higher elemental resistances other than enough just to negate the blight. Actually, we are going to do that in this fight as well, but I'll go over that in a second. Now, the other really helpful defensive skill we have for most other builds, but I'm not going to put it in this build because I want to max out Divine Blessing. And this is kind of a build to do the guide with. Personally, I probably wouldn't fight with Divine Blessing, and I would use Flawless Medicine Jewels to get the recovery up. But in any other fight, always slot this jewel right here, Flawless Medicine. These are maybe the best combo, in my opinion, jewels they are, because the skills just, you know, just synergize perfectly with each other, you know, perfectly. So what happens here is now we have peak performance, but let's talk about recovery up. We have, oh, I did not mention this, in my weapon, Zagaspanin, we have our affinity up, we have our health regen, and we have our elemental status effect up. And with your health regen, of course, the amount of damage you are doing directly correlates to how much health you get back. It's another reason you want to have really high damage output, or as high damage output as you can fit into a defensive build, because you're going to get more and more health back. And your medicine jewels is just going to max this out to get you 30% more than you normally would. So let's say, for example, you did a hit string that would have got you 100 HP back. It's going to get you 130 back. It's really significant because especially on the big hits of your guys and your combos, or just your really big damaging stuff, you'll notice that health bar fly to full, because that more damage you do is definitely increasing how much health you get back. Okay, so this would be the next skill I would use over Divine Blessing for most other fights, but like I mentioned before, AT Velkhana is a bit different, so we don't want to use this, so always keep that in mind. Now let's talk about a couple of other skills that I don't know if I'll be able to slot in here, but they're very useful defensively. One is your Crisis skill. All right, where is I think I have a Crisis protection. No? All right, just give me any old Crisis tool so I can show the skill. Showing the skill would be good. Here we go. Crisis attack. Okay. So basically, when it's active, it greatly improves the evasion and resuscitate. Yeah. Okay. Invulnerability time and reduce stamina depletion. Basically, let's say for example you have an ice or water blight, and you know how it reduces your stamina and turns blue and everything like that. This basically negates that effect, so your stamina doesn't deplete so fast, and it doesn't get eaten up and reduce, you know, your overall maximum bar. So this is a really good skill to have if you don't want to negate a blight, like ice for AT Velkhana, for example. If I didn't want to do that and just take the blight so I can proc something like Coalescence and not lose the stamina, you can fight through a lot of different blights with Crisis, Water Blight, Ice Blight being 2 of them, by having this slotted instead of any resistance. So Crisis is a very useful slottable skill for defense. And the next one that's really useful, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit it in this build, and I would recommend you guys actually do, if you're having trouble with a bunch of carts, you know, is Fortify. Everybody knows what Fortify does. It increases your attack by 10% and defense by 15% each time you cart. And it only works twice. So the first 2 times you cart, of course, most missions are over if you cart 3 times. So that's kind of why it is. So the first time you cart, you get your 10% increase, and then the second time you cart, you get another 10% and another 15% increase, making for a huge difference in offense and defense. This is one of those skills that it's so much better than defense boost max for actually negating damage. I would run something like Fortify over defense boost anytime, you know. But I don't think I'm going to need it because I don't like to do fortitude with divine blessing. You know what I mean? Divine blessing and some of these other skills are going to keep me alive. I don't cart very often as it is, but if you guys need this, this is the next important skill. You know, other than your meta offense and your evasion ability and your evasion and vulnerability window, these are these single skills that based on fights you might want to slot in there. Fortitude attack can be good, or fortitude can be good for just about any fight that you have any amount of difficulty for. But so instead, we're doing the flawless medicines, guys. We're just going to do the flawless protections to get our divine blessing to max, because like I said, in this fight, he has these really heavy hitting ice breath attacks that can really floor you, so this can come in handy many a time. Alright, so we're coming to the end of this build, actually. Sorry, skipped right over it, didn't I? There we go. So at least I'm going to get my attack boost with my, I have some regen MO weapon, and it's definitely going to top up my health. But all those items I mentioned to you before, every time you fill up your health, you're now proccing peak performance and a plus 20 attack raw boost. And the final thing I'm going to use, because I'm not running crisis or anything like that, is just a hard ice resist. Negate some more damage of that ice breath and make sure I don't suffer from any ice blights that reduce my stamina or anything like that. So this is my defensive build for Velkhana, and it has, some meta offense and the Frostfang punishing draw ability too. So that's going to come in handy too, because at the end of the day with the Mantles, we're just going to use a couple of attack jewels. And, these Mantles, guys, in this fight against AT Velkhana, he can easily burn through your temporal mantle, but it does come in handy even in this fight, too. You just got to be more picky when you use it, and that'll all be in the guide as well. So I always include the attack jewels in there, never have to run anything defensive here, because this is what you put on to wallbang the monsters when they're not enraged. Like, that's the only thing to do when they're not enraged is go for the wallbang, That's the first and foremost thing you do. You get them on the ground, you start beating them up. You only need offensive stuff here. Your glider mantle is very defensive and offensive in your maneuverability, in your damaging attacks. Everybody's flying attacks do much higher damage than their normal attacks, so this gets you up and in the air, able to do those attacks. You can clutch claw onto the monster and do those attacks and build up mounts and kind of control when you mount. I always get my 2 mounts per fight, and I generally save that for when the monster's enraged, because when he's not, I'm going to flinch at him. When he is, I'm going to try to eat up the time he's enraged by trying to mount him. Now in this defensive build, I would go ahead and use a evasion jewel to go ahead and max out my evasion, and then I would use a flight attack jewel to get a little bit more offense, because I will, for AT Velkhana, for a lot of difficult monsters, I like wearing the glider mantle to get in there at awkward angles and get my aerial attacks in there, which are high damaging. And when I land, I can go ahead and try to finish my spirit gauge combo to build meter and so forth. So it comes really handy. And also, guys like the hammer and the great sword and all these guys, the dual blades, you have some really awesome aerial attacks that do big damage. So the ability to control when you do that more than just on certain terrain, and being able to have access for those moves, even having access over those moves in a long distance, like let's say you jump over a cliff in the coral region and you get to glide for a really long distance before you get close and do your badass move. Some of these things just look cool and are really cinematic, but some of these things are highly useful to causing big damage. I have my Frostfang Greaves, and as we discussed in the Ultimate God of Destruction build, your aerial attack will count as a sheathed attack. So every one of those hits is going to inflict stun as well as aerial hits and damage. This is why I use the combination of these mantles. But I think that's about enough. I've talked about these mantles many other time. I'm going to link those videos that I describe these benefits. That's in my Ultimate God of Destruction video. And there'll be a link to many other tutorial videos for Monster Hunter in the first comments. And if you like this video, if you like this type of video, you'll like the rest of them too. And I promise you'll learn some things. I am wrong about some things, and I try to correct them as much as I can, either in videos or in comments. And if there's anything you see that you want to add or detract or whatever with this conversation, please let me know, because this is pretty much the build I'm going to use for AT Velkhana. And I believe I've gone over all the other useful skills, other than the ones you're not seeing on here, guys. Just as a recap: Crisis, Fortify, Earplugs, Wind Resist, and Flinch Free. There's not many other defensive skills other than those based on the fight that you're going to have with the monster that are actually going to be helpful and make any difference. One other skill that could be useful is when you're doing like an invulnerable build where you're using some Valhazic gear to keep your health super high topped up. You can use these recovery skills that allows you to recover so much faster than you normally could. But if you're not using a Valhazic invulnerable health build, basically, I'll make a video about that just to show what that looks like. You never need to use that skill. Okay, that's about it. I'm going to end this segment here, and we'll go on to the next one. One more point I need to add about the last section is some of these slottable defenses that you have for like poison resistance, wrong way, paralysis resistance, sleep resistance, blast resistance, bleed resistance, the stun resistance you have in your build. And if I don't have it in my build, I generally work around it anyways. And like your effluvial resistance, most of this you don't need a slot for at all. The only two I would ever consider is well, necessary in some fights, like Seething Basil Geese's a blast resistance, or like a Black Veil Valhazic, Miasma Jewels, your effluvia resistance. These are the only two I would actually put into my build. For bleed, I just either use an immunizer to mitigate its effects, or I just crouch and get away and crouch and get rid of it and top up my health with a max potion or something like that. For sleep, I just have my energy drinks. Paralysis, I mean, if I get paralyzed, I get paralyzed. Well, I'm just gonna have to deal with that one. Can't build for everything, Poison, I'm against a Silver Rathalos or Gold Raytheon or something like that. I'll just carry some antidotes. I'd much rather just carry something in my items rather than build for it if I can, so I can keep my build free for what I need to. Just these two, Anti-Blast and Miasma, and the effluvial resistance is what you're going to need to build for. And the second thing, I just want to show you this build. This is the build out of how I would fight AT Velkhana like today. The first build is for all you guys that are not familiar with the fight and are just trying to learn to fight him the first time. And I would actually use a similar build today, just with my hard ice resist. There we go. As I mentioned, because I do want the stun resistance, and I do want the Frostfang Greaves for the punishing draw. So I would, if I didn't fight him like this, I would fight him with the Frostfang Helm and your regular Fatalis feet. But something very similar to this is what I would use. I'm just going to drop the Divine Blessing, use the Flawless Medicines like we mentioned earlier, and have my Handicraft this way with just one jewel, because I'm going to need the level 3 slot for the criticals, because I'm just readjusting it that way, because I'm only going to have 3 evasion windows instead of 5. That's pretty much what I need. I do want my jump extender still maxed, and I'm going to be able to accomplish everything I need to with that. And I just use the extra jewel slot I free up for another attack 4. So in my mantles, I just need one more attack to max that out, and then I start adding dragon for more defense. Velkhana is 3-star weak to dragon, so dragon is very good for damaging him. And like I said, I want to hurt him as much as possible in this fight to keep him staggered and claggered, so I can be in charge as much as possible. I'm not going to be able to show it so much with the build of the defensive aspect, but with this build, I could really demonstrate it. But I want to use the previous build, of course, and then just a dragon for Jour right there to get the damage there. So that's the build. Oh, this flight attack as well, because I want to max out my attack and max out my flight damage from my aerial hits, because I will be doing a lot of them, and not just a mount. They're just good ideas to do on any monster that's hard to pin down. Either get on them and jump off and do some hits, or glide around. You know, AT Velkhana is going to leave me plenty of ledges to fly off of and get some damage and build some meter. So that's what I'm going to do with it. Okay, that's about the end of this segment. Let me get a sip of coffee, and I hope you guys are having a nice hot beverage, or maybe a fun beverage, because my videos are long, I know, but I try to go into these details because these are the type of things that I like to do with games, and I assume that you do too. That's why you're here, and I'm going to have a link to plenty more of these kind of guides for really any game I play. I'm going to have a lot of information for. Alright, let's go on to the next segment. Alright, that's about it for this video. This has been how to truly build for defense, and if you're interested in learning how to truly build for offense instantly, I will link that video below. I just feel like it's the mirror of this. So, you know, if you want to go and you've been wondering how do I do this and become a nice powerful warrior, let's show you the other end and watch that video, and you can learn how to instantly increase your offense across the board. I just want to thank everybody for joining me again. I know it's been a little bit of a long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the information. As I stated before, we got a couple other Monster Hunter videos coming out, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you again for joining me, and if you could be so kind as to leave a like, a comment, a subscription would be awesome. Just trying to get some of my numbers up, and I'm really genuinely just interested in what you guys have to think on these subject matters. I make these videos with these subject matters because these are the things I like to think about, like to tweak with, like to work with, to see if I can improve, and I'm always interested in anybody else's opinion on these things as well. Well, anyways, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful afternoon wherever you are in the world, and see ya.